Hi everyone! A huge welcome to our International Women's Day event this evening. Thank you all so much for taking the time to come and join us. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our wonderful panel that we have here with us tonight. Starting to my right, Anna Sebastian, founder of a global hospitality agency, and celebrate her. We also have Alice Taraschi, who is the manager of the Guards Bar and Lounge, where we are tonight. We have Hebe Richardson, owner of Soda and Friends. And last but not least, Siobhan Payne and Hannah Sharman-Cox at the end, co-founders and directors of London Cocktail Week, London Consultancy, and the Pinnacle Guide. So, this year's theme, as I'm sure we're all aware, is Accelerate Action. And that is going to be our talking point for tonight, focusing a lot on the hospitality industry. To begin with, Siobhan, I'm going to come to you with the first question. I'd love for you to start us off by telling us, what is it like being a woman working in the on-trade industry today?
Yeah, I actually specifically wanted to answer this question because I wanted to start this glorious panel on quite a positive note, because certainly for myself, and I can on this occasion speak for Hannah as my business partner.
You can always speak for me.
We find it to be a very positive experience, and actually the fact that we're women and I suppose the natural abilities that women have actually lends itself really well to business, to running a business and to starting a business. We are lucky in that on the whole, we don't experience much negativity as a result of being women. That is not to say that doesn't exist. And we are really, really aware that working behind the bar, or actually working in venue, is sometimes a little bit of a different experience. But certainly as business owners and as people that run businesses and manage teams, we think it's great, actually. So
I agree. I think it is a fabulous industry to work in. And I think we all love hospitality, we love spirits, we love the drinks industry. And I think it's really important, as well as acknowledging that there are challenges that we have to address and that, you know, we need to do more work to improve conditions, that there is a lot to celebrate and to be positive about in the industry. To our other speakers, what are your thoughts on the current, I suppose, state of the industry and being a woman working in the on-trade?
Shiv made a really good point about how women have a lot of natural abilities when it comes to empathy and dealing with people, managing teams and all of this. I think where sometimes the challenge is knowing how to use these natural talents that we have and use them to our advantage when it comes to, I think one of the biggest barriers that keeps coming up in conversations that I keep having is how can women progress when it comes to career? And I think it's about knowing how to use these talents. And I think sometimes naturally we face these barriers because we're like, well, I can't ask for a pay rise, or, oh no, like maybe that's that imposter syndrome. And it's about navigating a way around that and putting in structures in place in order to feel confident to ask for a pay rise. I don't know how many people, when maybe you get approached to do something, are like, well, what do I charge? You know, or how do I ask for a pay rise? And this is something statistically that men find very, very easy. So I think it's about trying to put those things and educating ourselves as well on how to do that. I think obviously the other side, you know, making sure that men also and other people also have the right training in order to know to open up that door to put women on, you know, at that same table. So I think the education works both ways, but I think it's about knowing yourself and knowing how to use those natural talents in order to progress and, you know.
And also I would say, like, as an extension to that, being able to ask your peers about that. And again, I think that's why our industry is really a great one to be a woman in, because there's such a fantastic support network. Celebrate Her, there's other ways in which we can kind of support each other and talk to each other. And I think the key is to use those networks and inner circle to learn from each other, which is why the Celebrate Her WhatsApp group is so good, because it's just full of conversation about, you know, asking advice and offering opportunities. And I don't think the men in the industry have that resource and that kind of support network. So again, it's like, it's quite a positive point of women coming together and being like, no, you know what, actually, we're gonna come together and we're gonna rock this. So I think that's nice.
I think just also being transparent as well. I'll give you just really quickly, if anyone that isn't in the Celebrate Her group and would like to be part of it, there is a link on the Celebrate Her Instagram bio. But just to give you an example, I was looking for 3 judges for a cocktail competition, and I asked a selection of people that were all in Bar World 100, all very senior in the industry. I said, what's your day rate? And the men said between 2,000 to 3,500 per day. And the women that I asked said the maximum amount was 750. And I think that just shows that we need to have these open conversations. Now, of course, different people, different levels of their career will have, you know, will charge different things. And I think that's completely fine. But when that difference is so large, and I think it's about, you know, and I sat down first, I said, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you need to be charging more because, you know, and I'm sure
we've done the same.
You guys have it far.
Yeah, just, I mean,
I had it happen to me where someone's told me I'm not charging enough. And I've been like, okay, sure, I'll charge more if you tell me to.
Like, I think, you know, we're very available to most people, and people do ask us often, and we just, if you're not charging enough, you should be told. And like, it's our responsibility actually to make sure that there's more, push more, because that is such an enormous pay gap. I mean, it's like, you know, we laugh at like, oh, it's the pay gaps, you know, it's a senior level, but no, that's the most senior level in our industry, and there's a gap of £2,000.
And it's not just related to our industry. I think it's, if you look at other industries, it's such a global problem of, you know, there is the gender pay gap is such a big issue. How do you have any advice in terms of how women can advocate for themselves a bit more? You know, if they're a bit nervous, maybe not even just financially, but in terms of standing up for themselves, not being overworked, not, you know, being the yes person on the team all the time. Any advice into how to just be a little bit more confident to stick up for yourself?
I find this happening all the time to me. I often work where my clients, I run a social media company as well. So on that side, my clients are often men. And so I find myself trying to navigate sometimes a language barrier and a slight way of working barrier. And I find the best thing in the world is to give myself space to breathe and think about it. I love a call where you end the call with, yep, I'll put something together for you and I'll get back to you, and taking myself out those pressured moments where someone might be making me feel like I should tell them a price right there and then, when actually if I go away and just have a second by myself to think about it, I can actually pitch correctly and price myself correctly. It's a massively powerful thing you can do, is to take a moment away from the conversation to analyze what you actually want. Is what's being asked of you appropriate? Is it what you want? And then being able to go back with your actual worth. It's super powerful. I love it.
We also use something, it's going to sound maybe silly, but called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule, where it's the Mel Robbins thing. She's the one that's just released the book about Let Them. And one of her first books I listened to and I loved, and I told Hannah about it, and we just have adopted this, is that if ever you feel a bit like, oh God, I don't know, like, you want to send something, like, you know, you're going to say, yeah, my day rate's £2,000 a day. And you're like, oh God, it shouldn't be £2,000 a day. And then but you want to send it, you just say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, send. And at the end, you just send it. And I think it's these little intentional tweaks to your life where you can actually like have that confidence. You have to be intentional, and confidence just doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up one morning and think, yeah, I can ask for £2,000 a day. You have to like do a bit of training and put in tools, whether that is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule or the let them rule or whatever rule you might need. But, you know, put in these little tools to actually help you become the woman that you want to be. I like it.
Just to like add to that is that as a young woman, it's even worse, right? Let's not dress that up. It's terrifying. But experience does make all of this easier. And for like, when you sit and you watch people do something and they're like, oh, they do this and they do that. But this didn't happen in our 20s. This didn't happen quickly. This didn't happen easily, actually. We sit here because we've worked our asses off for 25 years. And like, experience allows you the confidence, and it does come, and it comes to everybody. And so like, we all must give ourselves a bit of a break, that like, we're not all supposed to be fucking brilliant in our first day in the job, and that's okay, whether you're male or female or anywhere in between. It doesn't matter.
I mean, I was just going to say, like, Alice and I used to work together, and I really, because obviously I was a bar manager and then Leach is now running all of this. Have you seen things change in the last like 5 years?
Yes, I would say that things have changed a lot on people perspective on the industry as a lot. Like before, it used to be a place where everybody was literally working 120% of themselves, giving everything they had. Nowadays, I almost feel like people have relaxed a little bit. They're trying to give less and less to what the industry is. And usually what I say to female, I always try to have more female with me in the team. And I always say to them, especially when they're young and scared and shy as well, so like sometimes don't overthinking, just do it. And then you're going to face the consequences. That's the only way that you're going to learn. That's the only way that you're actually going to see results in your life. And that's the way you're actually going to grow up easier and faster. And you're actually going to be yourself. That's the best, most important things for us to be.
I think that's great advice from all of you. The theme has said before, accelerate action for this year. I'd love to know from you, what meaningful action have you seen recently within the industry, but also what further action do you think we need to see soon, and what do you think is achievable in sort of the near future?
Love to. I mean, I have one, and I honestly didn't know that these people would be here tonight. I already knew this answer when you sent it across in an email. But I recently went to an event organised by Janice and see you there. So hi. Where it was the first time I've been allowed to bring my daughter to an event. And as a new parent, that was such a big moment for me to be able to stay involved in the industry that I've worked in since I was 18. But also, if I hadn't have been able to do that, I wouldn't have been able to go at all. And so it was a huge moment for me to have that acceptance of making the accommodations. There was a high chair for her, even on the day. Yeah, it was super cute. She was so well behaved. It was great. But having those little accommodations made, and it was fantastic. And I think there's a lot more of our industry leaning that way, of realizing that if we just ask a couple of questions, we can make our events and our spaces a lot more accommodating to a lot more people. So it was a great event. I still think about it. I'm going back to that restaurant for my birthday. It was the best time.
I think Hebe touched on a really good point about the way that we work as well. I think for so long it's been this very traditional way of working where things aren't flexible. And I think the new way of working, we need to start thinking outside of the box. The way that I've started hiring people is on essentially freelance full-time contracts where you get all the benefits of working for a company, but you also have the flexibility to invest in all the personal things that you want to do. We just had a girl, she wanted to work from Cape Town for 2 months, and it wasn't a problem. We just made it work. And actually the productivity, the feeling there was just so much better, and it didn't really make that much of a difference. I think the other thing, and I know this is a bit of a plug, but it is for the greater good of the industry. We did quite a lot of research into data, and we found that there was a huge lack of data within the drinks industry. And then whilst we have all these emotions, and emotions are great, but it's really hard sometimes to ask for investment just based on emotions because people want facts and figures. So we partnered, and it was a very serendipitous moment because we met all these people that just wanted to be involved, that wanted to help. And we partnered with a global data company called CGA that do a lot of reports. Many of you who have worked with brands might have used them before. And we found this training platform called Alara Global, which is based in Australia. So the furthest point away from us. But they said, we want to invest in this. And together we've created this 10-minute survey that touches on points like parenthood. What are the barriers? What are the opportunities we have in the industry? What percentage of the industry is male, female, non-binary? How do people identify? Age, right? Where are people from? Where are people traveling to go and work? And all this data, I think, is so important for us then to start making decisions, to lobby for the government, to ask for funding, which I know is such a big thing for so many people's projects. It is now a bit of a numbers game. We're asking everyone to fill it out. The people that do support us and do help us will get a copy of the report for free. And this is going to be something that everybody can use. There will be opportunities for brands to buy this. That money will go into a financial grant program that we will be launching later this year to give financial grants to women. So I think it's really key, a combination of having the emotions that we all feel, but it's channeling that and using that data to get what we want to make the industry better for everybody. And I think the example Hebe gave about this, I saw that on Instagram and I was like, that's so good to have your daughter involved in this.
It was so it made me feel so much calmer and more confident as a parent as well, because I was freaking out a little bit of how do I work in the drinks industry, especially the booze side where so much happens at night and everything, whilst being, a parent. And then that one event happened and I was like, everything's going to be great. I can do anything. I can parent. I can go to parties. I'll do it all. I can't do it all, but I feel like I can.
It's amazing to hear that. And I'd actually love to put a question to both of you. For how difficult. Sorry, we're opening up the floor early. But I would just love to know, it sounds so revolutionary to hear that be available, but it's actually quite simple to just let you bring your child to an event. How difficult was it for you to organise that to be possible?
Well, full disclosure, it is me and the wonderful Jessie beside me who co-created this event as well. So I'm not going to take the whole thing. Just want to make that. Just want to make sure. No, it's this entire event was designed to champion it was called Nollaig na Mán, our Women's Christmas, which back in the day in Ireland wasn't necessarily the most feminist thing in the world, because it was the last day of Christmas, the 12th day, where women got to celebrate with their fellow women and leave the men to the housework and looking after the kids while they celebrated. So we're trying to re-own that and create it. Just wanted to make a lovely industry event. So everything from step one was, we found the wonderful women behind Inish, both Cole Lindsay, a wonderful married couple, the Lindsays, as they're down constantly in our chats. So from the get-go, it was okay, we are champion women, from the restaurant that we pick, everything about this, everyone that we invite. So I think when something is like that, it makes it an awful lot easier to it's of course you can bring your kid. Imagine saying no to an all-women's event and gorgeous Rosemary, the most well-behaved baby of all time. But yeah,
She put on a good show that day. She was.
But to talk more about the Lindsays, they have the high chairs. They name them after their regular babies that come into the restaurant. They actually write the name on the back of the chair and So we'll get Rosemary an official chair. I think we can make that happen. I hope I answered your question. I was not expecting this at all.
No, sorry for springing a microphone on you, but I think it's so interesting, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think it's such to see it happen, and maybe other brands, other companies, other events can go, well, if they can do it, maybe we can do it as well. And if it's possible and it doesn't disrupt anything, and it means we can have other brilliant mothers, fathers at the event that we want there, then we can maybe open that up, and that can become more of a normal thing, not a wow, that was a pretty unheard of thing. I mean, I've certainly not heard of anybody else doing that.
And just to say, to go back to why it's so good, that's our superpower, right? As women, we're thoughtful. we're really thoughtful for everybody, like all the time. It's actually, sometimes it's debilitating and not a superpower because we're so worried about everybody else. But like, you were just thoughtful. The end.
Also,
well done. Like
this might sound really silly. This is not me trying to contradict you at all, Hannah. But it's almost like, it sounds really stupid, but we didn't think about it. As in, like, it was an event for women. Yeah, exactly. Organised by 2 women, to the point where, like, my male colleague asked if he'd come, and I said, no offence, but fuck off. Like, sorry, was I not supposed to swear? But I was like, no, like, you get to go into all of your spaces. Yeah, like, this is actually a space that we're creating for, a particular, like, group of people to come together. And actually, whilst, going back to your, like, original question of what made you think to do that, we didn't.
Yeah.
Like, it was really like of course you can bring your daughter. Like, we want every extension. And I think interesting when you think about, for those of you who work for brands or are freelance or, creating events, like, if you are a woman, don't forget those innate powers and, like, instincts that you have, because your male colleagues probably don't. So yeah, that might sound a bit like assuming, because obviously everybody, has their own individual experience and that kind of thing. But I do just think, don't forget, like, the experiences that you have influence the way you show up in the industry so much, to the point where you don't even notice. So sorry, that's just the only thing I wanted to add to that. So
I think it's also.
And I think
you can have your mic back now.
I think it's just, that's such a good example of opening one's mind to different requirements, and the fact that, because now I'm negative, oh God, but like, we're in a world created by men for men, unfortunately. And that is changing, but as women, we need to make those changes. And that isn't just events, that's understanding that in a bar, a woman going home at 3 o'clock in the morning after shift is very, very different to a man going home at 3 o'clock in the morning after shift. And so, what can a venue do to make that better? At an event, a woman maybe does have childcare concerns. So actually, can we open it up? And it's just opening the mind, I suppose. And that safety issue is massive. It's a really big thing, and it is probably quite a big sticking point for women progressing in the industry, certainly, I think.
Yeah. And just coming back also to what Anna, you were saying about the census. And I think that's, again, something I think is brilliant, because knowledge is power. And if you have the data and you have the stats to back up, what we need and how we need to progress, that is hopefully going to help us furthermore. And I would say to everyone here, if we do one bit of action from this tonight, go and fill out the survey, because it will help all of us within the industry.
I think what we can all work towards is collectively creating a movement. And I don't think any of us should underestimate one small action, but if we all do it, whatever that is, we can create this movement. And I think it takes one person or one entity or one bar, restaurant, hotel to start something, and other people you'll start seeing it. And I think that's really, really powerful. And I think the other thing is, in order to have impact, you need to understand what people value. And that's something that sticks in my head. So if it is safety, and I think, Shiv, that was a really good point to touch on, safety is such a big thing within the industry. What can we do to change it? And, I'm just putting it out there. But the way that if you have a bar, or, you run a bar, or you work in a hotel, you'll do brand agreements. And you factor your opening cost into your budget, right? Imagine you do the same to provide taxis home after a certain time for people. So TfL, I don't know if it's a random fact, but TfL, obviously they have tube drivers, right? How do you think the tube drivers get home at the end of the night? They have their Ubers paid for. Why can't we do this as hospitality? But if enough people say, I don't feel safe, is this something we cannot lobby to the government with? I'm sure most of you will know Kate Nichols, the head of UK hospitality, a great support for our industry. But this is what we need to be going and looking at inspiration from other venues to go, well, actually, that works. But we can create this movement. The more we talk about these challenges, but also opportunities, and the more we celebrate things, the more impact that we can have. And someone there will pick this up and
Also, I
It's
think
powerful.
it's about saying it out loud and making people realise, because with the Pinnacle Guide, which is our bar recognition system, the process is that a bar has to apply and they have to fill in quite an in-depth application form across about 100 questions, 6 modules. It's a journey.
Very
That Alicia will be able to contest to. And one of the questions we have on that is, what measures do you take to get your staff home safely? And as we're in our 3rd round now, and I'd say it's already started to get better because the conversation is going. You know, there's brands. I know just off the top of my head, Lillet did a nice piece where they were paying for taxis for people to get home. It's more of a conversation. I think even in the year that we've been taking applications, we've seen a little bit more improvement where a bar manager is saying after 1 a.m. we pay for taxis, or we have a buddy system, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and like even by what we felt was by asking the question, they had to answer the question if you want to fill out the form, right? And so some people really nicely write not applicable, which you think, there you go, well done. But actually, like, okay, fine, it's not all Ubers home at the end of the night, but there's the buddy system comes up quite a lot. Or like, we all leave together. I walk my junior members to their car. That happens a lot in the States. So this is a global piece, so we get a real snapshot of what's happening everywhere. But again, by asking the question, we're asking for the answer. You can't leave an answer blank. You've got to write, I don't do this, which is fairly embarrassing when you're filling out a form to tell somebody you're excellent. So on the whole, it does try and make people think about how they answer these questions. And yeah, you're right. It has marginally, but improved and will continue to. That's the plan. And that's the whole point of what the project that we're trying to run.
I would say from my perspective, talking to many people in the industry, working in bar and everything, it looks like people are slowly moving. There is more and more companies starting to think about safety. Like us as well as a company, we pay for the Uber for the guys anytime they finish after a certain hour. And it's something that attracts people to actually come and work for you. And this is something that's very important now that after COVID, nobody wants to work anymore. And you need to obviously kind of attract people to your place as well. So it's very important, these little details that you offer to people that obviously, especially for women, but for everybody in general, offer safety to people to come back home late at night.
And again, unfortunately, as women, I think we understand more than anybody the importance of looking out for each other and safety. And we often don't feel safe. And I think men a lot of the time can never quite understand how different that is for us. Unfortunately, we still hear some pretty shocking stories of sexual harassment or other types of harassment in the on-trade towards women. Do you feel like we are seeing positive change among those horrible instances still?
It's a big question to ask, because I think it's a topic that probably the majority of people standing in this room have experienced some sort of sexual harassment or some sort of sexual assault. I think there's been some horrific stories recently, especially the other side of the world, that have come out and publicly come out. And there have been some incredibly brave people that have spoken out. And actually, I don't know if anyone has seen, but they've turned what has been a horrific story of sexual assault and harassment into a really positive guest shift series, which is called Sorry Not Sorry. And it's a really incredible series that they're doing to encourage more people to talk about it, to come forward. One of the big things that I think we struggle with, and there are some brilliant resources out there, is the reporting system. So what do you do when something happens? What do you do when someone comes to you and says this has happened? A great resource is the Women's Night Safety Charter. I don't know if anyone has heard of this. You can become a signatory, which shows your support to them. You can sign up tonight. You get put onto their website. You get invited to their summits. You get invited to free training. It's an incredible resource that really focuses on what we all do in the night industry. But I think it's a topic that needs to be spoken about more in a safe environment. It's not just a topic that I think women should be talking about. It also needs to be, the focus and the onus needs to be on men, I think. But I think in terms of education, in terms of how the law works, what defines sexual harassment, what defines sexual assault. People don't know what they mean, the very basics. If you turn around to people, they will not be able to give you what that legal definition is. And I think it's really important that we're equipped and we have the tools to know what to do, how to support each other. The reporting line, what does CPS mean? Who takes it to court? How does it go to court? What is the time frame that you need to report something like this, and how do you do it? These are all really important things that we need to have that knowledge for. And yes, in an ideal world, this doesn't happen, but the reality of it is it does happen. I think in environments where, like, when you're running a bar and we're all around this sort of thing, we need to be putting boundaries in place to make sure, to the best possible way, that this doesn't happen.
I think that's a really great summary of the work that needs to be done. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it can't be on the women to make that change. It needs to come as a collective industry, regardless of your gender, to actually instigate that change and make real impact in the working environment.
But how do you, sorry to interrupt, but how do you, this is where I always come back to, but like, how do we engage the men? Because some, yeah, okay, sure, like a little bit, but I don't know, like, what's the solution?
I would say, I think there's an element of, it can start with the men who are close in your life. I find it very easy to have these conversations with my husband, for example. Now I'm in a position where, he's a man that I feel safe with. I know that I can be very blunt and open and honest with him and tell him, you need to call this out, or you need to change your relationship with these people, and here is why. And he believes me. That's a very luxurious position to be in. But I think if we start with those men that we feel safe and comfortable with, they then are more empowered to have those conversations with the men that we wouldn't necessarily feel safe and comfortable having those conversations with. I know that he's able to chat or call out various men that I would never feel comfortable saying something to. And there's even friends where I've had conversations with them about the language they use towards me, where I've noticed that they use very different language for me than they do with their male friends. And I've told them and said, why do you call me darling and sweetheart, but you call everyone else mate and pal? Why am I put down every time? And since then, they've not used that language. But I'm sure we can all think of one or two men that we might feel comfortable enough to have those conversations with. And that's how we start infiltrating the others.
I think that's a really, really good answer. And I think it brings back to something that Anna said previously, which is it's small actions add up to big changes. And I think taking sort of a more measured, safe approach like you spoke about, that can spread quite widely if if we all went and spoke to the safest person, the safest man, and had that conversation. And it's
also, sorry, Anna, anyone with a platform, which we have, you have, I'm sure lots of you have, host that information, because you don't know who's reading what, right? You read one magazine, you read a different magazine, you follow one person on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. But if everybody's got that information, then somebody will find it, because at the moment it's like, what are you searching? gov.uk. It's like, no thanks. Like, I don't know my rights. Where do I start? Like, I don't trust them either. So, at least if actually, like, across the industry, there's like a global standard that is like, this is what happens in your country. Yeah. We can all host that. We've all got, I'm not saying we all, but we certainly have an opportunity to host that.
The challenge is, I'll give you an example. There's another industry trade publication. So there'll be an article about batching or Negronis, and the hits will be crazy. I asked for the statistics for the stories about the new laws, because there were new laws that got posted this year about sexual assault. And guess how many people read the article? Less than 50 people. And then normal hits on some of their articles will get 800, 900. It's a huge, huge thing. So to start with, you could read these articles, support them, share them. Again, small, small, small things. I also think that the reporting is so key. No matter, you're like, oh, well, that didn't really matter. Or they just said this. No, you need to report it. Because it will happen again. And statistically, people that offend will reoffend and reoffend. Really like weird example, but bear with me on this. Like this is really old school example. Sorry about this, but like people that go and like flash people in parks, statistically, people that go on to sexually assault people. And that's a statistic, that's a fact. If people get away, they think they could get away with something small and they will continue. And it will get worse. But if you can report it and you report it to their workplace, you report it in a way that is done professionally, you involve the authorities if you need to involve them. But this is what prevents behavior. And it's when these things happen, it's all of our responsibilities and our friends. If your friend says something, to go, this is what needs to happen. And again, Women's Night Safety Charter, a huge resource. Please go and have a look at it. They do free trainings and it gives you that confidence. Bystander intervention training. Has anyone ever done this? It's 5 steps to kind of stand up against, give you that confidence and that process on what to do if you see somebody either trying to assault somebody in a public place. So these are free resources that might just give you that tiny bit of confidence to stop something else from happening. But this is the only way, again, small things that will make big change.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing as well those resources, because I think it's really helpful just to let people know where they can find the information as well. I'm going to move the conversation on because I'm conscious I feel like we could talk about this for a long time because it's so important. But I also wanted to touch on innovation within the industry as well. And there are some incredible women doing incredible things all across the industry. I'd love to hear from our speakers. Is there a recent piece of innovation that you've seen, and why did it leave you inspired?
Do you know what? It wasn't recently, but it's stuck in my mind. So being chronically online, I see a lot of stock imagery, and stock images are notoriously bad. They're getting better, but so often for our world in drinks, they are so stereotyped and so biased. And oh my God, have you ever tried typing in bartender and just trying to find one normal image of a bartender making a normal looking drink in a normal looking bar that happens to not be a white man? Is so difficult. It's so hard. But Becky Paskin from Our Whiskey Foundation started to create stock imagery specifically for whiskey that actually is diverse, actually showcases women drinking whiskey, how we normally drink whiskey, not in some loungy, weird way with no clothes on and looking like slightly dead behind the eyes. No, it's really, really great. And it's so useful to have, to be able to, for press, for social media, for so many different avenues, to have imagery that actually reflects what we do. Yeah. I was going to say on a daily basis then, and I don't think that's necessarily a correct statement.
But yeah, as an editor, it's been such a valuable resource. Like, if you haven't checked it out, it's free imagery on the Our Whiskey Foundation website, and you just have to credit the photographer and then you can use the imagery. I think that's a really lovely example of showing how women are doing some really great new things to help the industry.
I've just got one more example. I really love the work that Georgie Bell is doing with the Heart Cut. So her, alongside her husband, have launched a small kind of disruptor brand that is celebrating whiskey casks. And again, it's kind of a previously thought of male-dominated industry, and kind of that part of whiskey that is maybe usually considered to be that kind of old man in a leather chair type area, but she's going around the world with new babies. So, well, they're not that new anymore. They're one. So twins, Wrigley twins. So she launched the business and had the babies in the same month, and she. Since then, the business is just going from strength to strength, and she's kind of bringing a really young and really feminine, I will say, approach to the casks that she's bringing to market, and it's really wonderful, and I'm really proud of her.
Yeah, it's a really great brand that she's got there. I'm also a big fan. And speaking of brands, we still see products that are launched directed specifically towards women. They can often get a bad rap for taking that approach. Is there a space for products like that in the industry?
I would say yes, in a certain context. Like
It's the big pens again, isn't it?
See, I love when a brand actually commits to marketing to a specific audience. I think far too often brands in general, and I'm sure anyone who works in PR marketing in the room has all seen it, where you're like, okay, so like, who are you for? What are you doing? And they're like, yeah, so like we're kind of like a brand for everybody. Like everybody's gonna love this bitter aperitivo that we've created. It's actually gonna break us into the main. And you're like, this is a load of crap. So when someone says, this is the person we're aiming for, it's great. I think there's no space left for the stereotypes. That's rubbish. Like, we like plenty of different colors, and we don't necessarily all love floral notes, but to actually say, do you know what, I've created something for women that they will love, that's something for them specifically, I don't think that's an issue. It's just stereotyping us and putting us in that one pink floral Barbie box, which some of us do enjoy as well, but you just got to open it up a bit and actually understand, do your market research. That's where I was going with that.
But actually, what's great about our community, our industry community, is that we're very quick to call out those brands that are doing that stereotypical marketing. And I agree. I think clever marketing towards a specific audience, whether that's women or men or whatever the specific audience is good, but it has to be done in an authentic way. And it just barks, doesn't it, when you see it and you're like, oh, this is a campaign for women written by men, and you just roll your eyes. But we do call it out, don't we? Between us, it's quite fun.
Yeah, and I think it's very needed, but I think you're right. When it's done intentionally and it's done well and the research has been done, as you said, I think there can be a space for it. Investment in women-owned businesses, so not just in the drinks industry, but investment in women-owned businesses in the UK is pretty shockingly low. So only 2% of venture capital funding in the UK goes to women-owned businesses. And then when you look at specifically women businesses owned by Black women, it goes down to 0.02%. And that was data from the UK Treasury from 2023. And I heard this on a podcast and just thought, this is shocking. We have people who have started their own businesses, brands on the panel tonight. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on your experiences in getting businesses off the ground, growing them, financial support. How have you found it? And do you have any advice to anybody who's maybe in those early days of starting their own business?
Okay, so we have most recently launched a brand. You're still standing up. Sorry, it's so long, isn't it? You're all right. You have a little wriggle around. We started a brand called the Pinnacle Guide. Actually, we only launched it to consumers in May last year, so it's actually very fresh, but we've been working on it for about 4,000 years. And we launched it to the on-trade 3 years ago. It's a terrible answer to this question because we actually don't have funding in the way that, like, we're talking about VCs, and we've self-funded this, which sounds a bit swishy, but it's not as swishy as it sounds, just to be clear.
It just means that we do everything.
That exactly.
That is.
And so I think that in my answer to your question is, like, actually writing a business plan, pitching it in can feel really daunting and can sometimes feel like a stumbling block to starting something new. But actually there's lots of things you can do to get a business off the ground that don't involve the scary bit where you've got to put your big trousers on and like go and ask for something that you're not quite confident in doing yet. And so we asked for loads of help. We had loads of help from around the world from the industry. And actually before that, when we had just the crux of an idea, we found maybe 5 people globally that we really admired what they did, and we knew them kind of well enough to ask a favour in half an hour of their time, and we were like, we think we might do this, what do you think? And actually these people were so generous and came back with lots of ideas, and it was quite fun for these people because it's like something new and something to think about. And actually it's always really flattering to be asked your opinion on something. So even just asking for help, asking for time, asking for support, contraring stuff, swapping something for something, like there's lots of ways of starting something without it being this scary VC part. I mean, the stats are disgusting, but
I'm one of those people, as it happened, one of those 5 people that we went to and it, said that that's what we're doing, ended up becoming our business partner on it. And that was really nice. And he brings to the table things that we don't bring to the table. And it was a really fortunate decision that we made to tell him, because the business wouldn't be where it is today without him. So it was,
because you need both sides of energy and both sorts of people, and we can't do everything on our own. Do most things, but we can't do absolutely everything on our own. So yeah, I think the biggest thing I would take away from that is like there's other ways to,
because it came from an authentic place, didn't it? Because I can't imagine that we would have ever had the confidence at that point, and it might be a bit different now, but we would never have had the confidence at that point to go to someone we didn't know at all and ask for money. So instead we did what we do feel comfortable with, which was go and just tell people what we're up to and see what the feedback was. And I think, great things can happen from that, from going from a place, it's still out of your comfort zone, but you're like, I can do this, rather than being so far out of your comfort zone that you just don't do it at all. I think it's about being realistic about what you can do, but still pushing yourself.
I like that as advice, and finding people who share the same values as you and who have the same, get on board with your vision and doing it that way. And as you said, doesn't have to be the big, scary financial route. It can actually, strengthen numbers, and, people bringing other skills that you don't have to the table is so powerful.
I think I really resonate with a lot of that, because when I started my business, wasn't really a business. It's about a year and a half into it. And my turning point was we got to pitch for this huge client. It was a huge, huge contract, from actually how to execute it, but also financially. And we got to the final 2 and they went, okay, well, if you want this contract, the only thing that's holding you back, you don't have a team. And I was like, oh, no, I do. And they were like, oh, yeah, well, let's get on the call. And I was like, shit, what do I do? Anyway, I called somebody that gave me my first job when I did a little stint in PR, and I said, hey, listen, I need you to be on this call with me. This is the situation. And she was like, yeah, no problem. And it was kind of like, okay, cool. But through that, we got a global contract for 371 hotels worldwide. This was a turning point where I went, right, I need to stop messing around and going to Dubai 4 times a year. I need to actually now focus and realign. And this opened up doors. Now, obviously, that sounds great. Not plain sailing. Big companies, it takes ages for contracts to be set up. It takes ages for money to come through. So your cash flow, so I then hire people. I don't have the cash flow to pay anyone. I am maxing out every credit card. I'm in my overdraft. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to walk because I don't know if my card will like work for this Uber or for the bus or for the tube. I got paid last year, 6 months worth backup of pay on the 22nd of December. The biggest takeaway that I took from this is, yes, take that chance, like ask for help from people, but also educate yourself financially. And this could be just learning what certain words mean, but also then factoring into because at some point you will have to have a business plan. You can't just ignore that, in my opinion, but then start factoring in that you need an accountant. There's an amazing software out there that you can use, but if it is not your forte, get some help with that, and educate yourself on being financially smart.
Get an accountant. Everybody nods.
But now like I look at things, and as much as maybe on Instagram life seems very super glamorous, well, you're going to these hotels and stuff like that. one of the biggest examples is I will not pay for, well, if I'm flying, unless somebody else is paying for it, I do not fly business class. I will sit in economy like I did, and I landed at 6 o'clock in the morning for 13 hours from Singapore because that's someone's salary. And right now, whilst business is good, I want to invest that into someone's salary. I can't justify that for the extra £3,000-4,000. I can't do that. But this is what's, when you are thinking about this, when like getting funding and stuff like that, you need to be super savvy with how you're asking and going to the right people and presenting, understanding, does your idea resonate with them? Because if it doesn't, they're probably not going to maybe invest. But if you could find that right person somewhere in that haystack, that's going to get you that kind of leg up into the next stage, I guess.
I'd love to touch on bar and venue ownership in this space because it's quite a different kettle of fish to the self-employed life and the freelance life. It's a very different business model. And although I'm in the fortunate position of I have all male business partners, all white male business partners who sourced the investment that we got, which is probably a huge beneficiary part of it. There is ways to get funding for venues that is not the stereotypical route. So I don't know if anybody in the room would be interested in going down that road of owning their own venue one day. If you are, please message me on Instagram. I will talk to you for far too long, but I can give you a lot of tips. But what we did was landlord investment. So there's a lot of money in these new build high rises. They're hideous for communities, but if you're a new business owner and you want to do something fresh, they have money to invest in their ground floor units because that's not where they make their money. They make their money from the hideously expensive flats that go above the ground floor properties. So that's what we did. We had investment from them. So for example, with Soda and Friends, the landlord over a series of payments gave us £500,000 to open the venue. So it was completely funded by the landlord because for them it was a marketing exercise. It was a way to sell the properties and it worked. They actually sold all the properties before we'd hit month 3 of being open. At that point they stopped caring. They did not want to speak to us ever again. But with that, there is ways to go that aren't the traditional routes of investment. And we're very lucky where we had a property guy who helped us negotiate that deal. But there are deals like that. We did it with other locations as well. So it is possible to find alternative investment routes than VC or things like that. But yes, I will happily, if anybody is interested in venue stuff in that world, please just drop me a message on Instagram or I don't know, anyway on the internet. I'm on my phone all the time.
Amazing. Thank you all for giving so much insight into that. I think it's really great for people to be able to hear that there are different avenues. I think it's like a career path, right? Everyone tells you need to do this and you need to do this and you need to do this. And this is when you get how you get from A to B. But actually, there are so many ways that you can navigate business, life and everything that comes with that. I'm conscious we're running out of time. I do want to bring the question back to you actually, Hebe, because we did want to talk a bit more about parenthood and the industry. And I think it's such an important subject that isn't spoken about very much. And we were all chatting before the panel and, sort of even we were shocked at a few things that were raised and how challenging it is to be a parent in our industry. My question to you is, what are some actions that you would like to see that would help your journey as a mother, as a business owner, as somebody working in hospitality?
Yeah, it's a weird world. I'm very new to it. My daughter is now 8 months old, so I'm very fresh to this. So for any more seasoned parents, I'm sure they have even more experiences. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what's coming. Just keep me oblivious. She doesn't even crawl yet. You put her down, she stays there. It's great. But the trickiest part I've found is that so much happens in our industry at night. And unfortunately, that just is an instant barrier. That's I can't bring my child along to a nighttime event. She does not like the dark. I've tried to bring her to bars, and as soon as those lights start to dim, she's like, no, get me the fuck out of here. This is miserable. Nobody can see the menu. It's awful. But so when anything happens in the evening, it's something to be really considerate of. And it's not always both parents. It's more leaning towards mothers, because for me, it's because I'm breastfeeding and I feed her to sleep. She is not the most comfortable with going to sleep without that. So this is the second time we've done it. My husband is rocking it out by himself. I've told him, don't tell me how it goes unless it goes great, and then I'll love to know. But it's a huge barrier. If your event happens in the evening, if you're doing something that could happen in the daytime, that instantly makes it easier to get childcare, or to be able to attend, or to be able to maybe open it up that children could come along, babies. It makes a huge difference to how women can continue to be part of the industry when they're on maternity leave or beyond. I know a few faces here are parents, and it's a huge chunk of time that you have to leave the industry for, partially because when you're pregnant, there was a lot of stuff I couldn't go to because I was pregnant, couldn't do anything at them, / I was really tired or felt sick, so didn't go. So if I hadn't started getting back into the industry with my daughter, it would be a solid 2 years that I wouldn't have been part of anything, really. And it's a long period of time.
It is, especially, I think everyone on the panel, and you are so passionate about the industry, and you clearly love the industry as well. Like, that element must also be tricky. So thank you for sharing your views, and for sharing sort of insights into how we can maybe think a bit differently about how we open up space and make it easier for parents to still work and thrive in the industry. We are 8 minutes past 8. Thank you all so much for all of your insights this evening. Yes, please give it up for our speakers tonight.
Thank you for being a wonderful host as well tonight.
Yes, thank you.
You make this easy. We do have some time for some question and answers from our panelists still. I know we have lots of questions coming in. Maybe, okay, top left we've got, how do you think companies can foster a more inclusive and diverse environment within the hospitality sector?
I think there's a couple of things that can be done. I think having really, really clear policies from day one, no matter how big of a company or how small of a company you are. I think education is really, really key, because I think a lot of people will come in and think, well, I don't know what, say, DEI stands for. I don't know what this is. So I think it is really, really starting from the beginning and taking people on that journey with you as well. Again, lots of resources are out there, Equal Measures, who I know you've worked with for London Cocktail Week. Vicky does a great job with this as well. But I think it's really about going on this journey, and from day one, even in interview process, is about managing those expectations from the beginning and saying, well, this is our essentially manifesto, this is our policy. Do you agree with it or do you not? And if you want to work here, then you have to agree with this. But also having those clear boundaries that if this is not followed, then these are the consequences for that. But again, I think we've got to learn from each other, sharing policies, really actively going, hey, I've got this document, who wants it? Why do we all have to spend 5 hours working on the same document when one person can do it and share it? I think so key. This is how we grow. This is a movement. We need to stop thinking individuality and start thinking collectively as a movement. And I think
we made the decision to publish all of our EDI documentation for London Cocktail Week on the site, so anyone can just copy it. And that was the question thing. We were like, well, someone can just copy this. We were like, brilliant. Like, if more people can copy this and just change the name London Cocktail Week, enter your own business name, then lovely. We've paid for that work. We've done that work. We work with Equal Measures to build all those policies, those documents. Like, go and download it. We can. We're a bigger business. We can afford to do that. So And we did encourage our bar partners to read them and download them and have their own policies and tweak it for them, you know.
Same. Pinnacle Guides is exactly the same. There's 13 hours online of how to open the best bar in the world by some of the greatest names in our industry. It's free to watch. It's there. All our questions are freely available. All these questions champion all these things that we've talked about today. They ask challenging questions, which some people, not most people, have been very, very open to it, which is very encouraging. But some people are uncomfortable answering some of the questions. They don't understand why they've been asked. We're like, we want to make you think. By asking the question, we've put it out there. So again, it's all completely freely downloadable from the websites.
I think that's great as well, because I think if you really do want to affect change, you need to open up to everybody and make it easier for everybody, and not someone has to be the first, the second, the third to sort of break barriers down.
Don't gatekeep. It doesn't matter. Let's be all brilliant. Let's have everybody in this room be fucking brilliant all the time. There's space for everybody. The more you gatekeep, it's not a vibe. So yeah.
How about when the harassers are the customers rather than the workplace? How do you tackle something like that?
It's a bit complicated. It's not easy to manage a situation where a person doesn't feel comfortable serving somebody anymore. I always say to my team, if you don't feel comfortable doing something, just tell me and I step in. And then obviously the moment I step in, I've got experience behind my shoulder, of course, so I know how to deal with certain situation. But I would never push any of my staff to deal with something that they're not ready to do. And the moment that a guest gets behaving badly with the manager or anybody, that's because obviously you're females and you're not always appearing in the same way that a man does, then you just get security and you kick them out. Easy.
Yeah. But it's so true. Like, I mean, I remember we used to deal with a lot of this sort of stuff in the bars, and I think and you've done an amazing job of setting those like clear expectations so people actually feel that they can come to you and go, this guest has groped me. And it's not a question. They're just not here anymore. And I think when you set the tone for that environment, it's very easy.
And sometimes it's as well making an impression on the people. The first time that you act on something, then people knows they can come to you. So if it's something doesn't happen, it's not just a bar. If something happened maybe in the restaurant or somebody else, but people knows that you act about it, then they come to you and say, okay, what can I do about this situation? And you kind of became an example for other people on what can they do in situation where they feel uncomfortable. So it's not just about people drinks too much and they get drunk and you need to do something. It's about people who actually misbehave even when they're sober. So it's about bigger kind of picture more than just a bar problem.
Yeah, and having very clear rules of how you deal with that by the sounds of it is how you make sure that there's zero tolerance and your staff feel protected as well, which is super important. What advice would you give to someone who is new to the industry?
Social media, straight off. I'm very biased, but it is amazing the connections you can build without even leaving the house. There are so many people in this industry that are so active on their Instagram, and it's so easy to spark natural conversations online. It can be really intimidating coming to an event like this. It's an opportunity to network. I have never gone up to someone that I don't know at an event and gone, hi, nice to meet you, I'm Hebe. And my anxiety could never. But I have done that on Instagram where I've chatted with people, I've sparked conversation, and essentially my entire business and brand is built off Instagram. So I would say I would recommend A, get posting yourself, but B, start following the people that you want to connect with and want to maybe look up to, because that's such an easy way to get involved and start building that community.
And I think as well to add on that is that don't be scared of people's judgments. Be yourself and just don't care about other people. Just do what you want to do, learn what you want to learn, and just progress in what you want to progress.
I would say as well, because I know it's really nice to not leave the house. Personally, I really enjoy not leaving house. But if you really feel ambitious and you really want to get on and you really want to be a big deal in the industry, you do have to leave the house, unfortunately, and you do have to go to the events, even if it is a bit awkward. And I remember when I first started, and I was working for Difford's Guide at the time, and I said to him, "Can I just have all your invites?" Because he didn't want to go. He didn't need to go. It was really a big deal. And I went every night. I went out, and sometimes I didn't drink, and often I went on my own, and sometimes I went to events, and it was awful. And I just, oh, you don't know anyone here. But slowly, even after like 3-4 events, you start to see the same people that are also doing that, and all the same journalists that kind of have to be there, and you do build those relationships. And now I can not leave the house, because I've left the house loads and built all those relationships. And so it is kind of having, again, it's that leaving your comfort zone. We're back there, that leave your comfort zone and go to that event alone, because there'll be someone else there alone. Or you can talk to the bartender, or you can like have a couple of drinks and then go home, but I do think you need to leave the house, unfortunately. So
I think one thing that I would say as well is get to know yourself. And by this, I mean, who are you on your great days when everything is just like super great? And who are you on your bad days? And I think that's really, really key, because you will start to learn the things that you need to work on, the things that maybe trigger you, the things that upset you. And then you're like, okay, I need to work on maybe dealing with that better. But also, what are the things that make you feel good? And I think this is so key, because then you can start aligning yourself with the right business partners, or the right new job, or the right people, or going to the right events. How do you deal with yourself in those situations? What makes you feel comfortable? What makes you feel challenged? Both are great things to feel. But if you are starting off new, and I wish I'd maybe spent a little bit more time investing in how I felt and what triggered me and what made me better, so I could improve myself. And I think that's really key. Don't be afraid to get to know yourself on some really, really deep levels, because that's actually when you start excelling. And I think that's quite special.
Yeah, great advice. I love this question in the bottom corner, and I agree. When I was doing the questions, I was like, when is Anna gonna run for president? Anna, when are you going to work for the Parliament and represent all of us?
I'm not sure, but never say never. Never say never. I've got up my manifestation boards about something. I don't know exactly what, but I would love an opportunity to represent and help and make a difference. That's, I think, when we go back also maybe about starting out in the industry, what's your purpose? I don't think it should ever be tied to one job, but that bigger picture of what is your purpose. And I think it's hard to find, but if you can find that, then that's brilliant.
We'll vote for you.
Yeah, I think you would have a lot of votes from this room. Okay, from a brand owner perspective, what has been the single most groundbreaking / inspirational effort made for the benefit of women? Be that brand ambassador, sponsorship, training, taxis home, training, etc.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that from when I was a bar manager, I think, when Double Dutch launched their mentorship program. And that's huge. And Nick Mean have done some amazing bits with mentorship and things. I think that the more we can give to women in our industry like that, and I've had one glass of wine and I'm gone. And I'm just, can't form a sentence. I think there's something really magical when a successful woman uses her success to train other women. I think that's really wonderful. And the best thing we can do for ourselves is to apply and put ourselves forwards for those elements. But yeah, definitely Double Dutch and McNean both have great programs that they do every year. Double Dutch is every year. I think McNean is every year as well. They're really fantastic.
Yeah, there's some amazing incentives. I think you just have to look. Equal Measures, Aid a Common Project, so many, even on the, even I think also looking outside the UK, some really, really great programs, another round, another rally. there's so many, and I don't want to keep to a book because I know I'm going to miss some out. But I think I do have a list somewhere. But I just think we could look for inspiration everywhere, and sometimes you're picking ideas and putting them together. But there's so many incredible things, and I think, yeah, I'd love to hear if anyone else comes across anything great, and we could put together a list to share it with everybody. So
we should do that for sure. I have one final question for you all, as I know people want to be getting to the bar and get some more drinks in them. But my final question for you all is, what's a goal that you have for this year, and what's the action that you plan to take to get there?
We have shared business goals, so I'll answer on behalf of both of us. For us, our main focus, alongside actually London Cocktail Week just being brilliant, but we're in year 16 of London Cocktail Week. It a little bit looks after itself. But for us, the Pinnacle Guide, we really think that we are doing really good work. We're asking difficult questions, and we've had so much feedback of bar managers that have read our questions and then gone and made some changes internally before they've then come back and filled in the application form. So for us, it's just getting as many bar operators as possible to look at the Pinnacle Guide questions, whether they want to enter or not, and then start to question their operations to improve things for the industry globally is our goal this year and beyond.
Just that small thing,
no biggie.
Make it to next week. I don't know.
Which sometimes is very fine to just be, like,
I think I'd just like to, right now, working and being a parent at the same time is a big juggling act. And so I would like to just get to a place where my business is fully functioning. It is mostly functioning, but fully functioning, and I'm parenting at the same time. That's my dream. I don't want to give up either. I'm very selfish. So to get to the end of the year as a working mum properly, I'll be well chuffed with that. Yeah, I'm very happy.
And you should be able to do both of those as well, is the thing. You should be able to have both of those. Absolutely. Absolutely.
For me, mainly the aim this year would be kind of creating a better life balance for people that works in the industry, creating this type of exactly balance. That could be that like 3 days off and 4 days of working, taxi at night, many different kind of action that makes people more attracted to the industry, that makes new people wanting to come and work for bars because we actually meet new people. That would be a thing and obviously sharing the kind of life balance with other people, other bars, making sure that trying to make people to don't finish too late at night, or kind of having a better understanding of what then brings to these people's life. Yeah.
Anna, final.
I mean, I've mentioned it before, but if we can get some really good results from a survey, we could share this information. We can help attract new talent, because that's so key. We can maybe and hopefully make things safer, more equitable, and really start creating a movement that we can all be part of. So it is it's not baby steps. It's one step at a time. But I think collectively, this is all something we can be part of. So yeah, thank you in advance. And thank you for having us as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for taking the time to come and listen. I hope you have found that inspiring and it's given you some great resources. I know I've definitely am going to be taking a lot away from this. And thank you all so much for being so open and sharing so much insight for us this evening. Please do stick around, have a drink with us. We would love to chat some more and enjoy the rest of the evening. And we will work on getting, a few more resources, particularly on the spirits business. I would love to kind of put some of those sites that we have mentioned tonight into kind of an easy to find place for you all. So thank you again. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.